Hello, everybody. Welcome to another That Word Chat. So pleased to see so many wonderful people in the room. It's been 4 weeks. I've been to Florida for 2 of those weeks. I've forgotten most of what the show is all about, and so far I think that technically we're okay. The intro worked, and that's usually the hardest part to get right. So, anyway, welcome everybody. This is a really cool show. We've got Sangeeta Mehta from the EFA Diversity Initiative. You'll correct me on the correct terminology, and then Maisha Maurant from ACE's Diversity and Inclusion Committee. And both of those are in the editorial world. I don't think either of them are working as editors. Usually we have editors on the show. Sangeeta is mainly on the writing side. I want to ask her about that and what she does. And Maisha has the most interesting jobs I can imagine, and I can see how they all relate to her background as a copy editor. But we'll talk to her about that. I want to start with Maisha, and I do want to emphasize, we're talking about we're going to talk about a lot of different subjects, and if you've been here before, you know that I like to talk, and I want to make sure we have time for your questions. So if you do have questions or things that relate to some of the stuff that we're talking about, please be sure to do that query in the room, and we'll try to get these two amazing people available to answer your questions. So Maisha is, both of these people founded or were there for the founding of their respective organizations. And so the full disclosure here is that I was also a founding member of the Diversity and Inclusion Committee for ACES, the Society for Editing. So everything I ask, some things I ask, I may know the answers to. Some of the things that I'm asking are, coming from that viewpoint, but that's just by way of disclosure. Maisha, tell us about the committee, how it got started.
Okay. Hi, everyone. So great to have you guys be here. I'm so glad to be here with you. As Mark was mentioning, we have a diversity and inclusion committee at in ACES, but we started out as a task force. So what I had noticed is that being on the executive board, we kept having conversations about diversity and inclusion. And in almost everything we were talking about, we would say, oh, we need to make sure that we think about that in the context of this other thing that we're doing. And what has struck me is that we didn't really have a strategic initiative or a strategic way to go about it. It was more kind of ad hoc. And so I remember pitching at one of our board meetings the formation of a task force or committee or group to ensure that we came up with a way to get our arms around this and make sure that it was integrated in all that we do, because that was what we wanted. And the board was super supportive of that. We started out with, I believe, like 6 of us starting the conversation. And I remember it being like we were preparing for a spring conference. So we were kind of jumping on a moving train and trying to get things initiated for the conference. We thought it would be a great way of introducing the initiative. So we introduced it. So that was 2018 that we started the task force, which eventually became a committee as it got larger. The initiative got larger. And we were preparing for our 2019 conference in Providence. And so since the conference was already, the planning was underway, we were able to still do a diversity breakfast, which was really great. It was great conversation. That's how we started with talking with folks about their thoughts on diversity and inclusion, both within ACES, in the industry, just in life in general, and what we might want to, do some discovery of, what we might want to, include in ACES. So we had this great breakfast and conversation. We also had a panel where we had some wonderful guests from the New York Times and editors from the New York Times and BuzzFeed. And we had a conversation with editors of color. And what we said, we kind of pitched it as, this is not one of those technical conversations. It's not about PowerPoints. It's really a conversation of what it means to be an editor of color, how we can support them, what their experience is like. And those were two of the key things that we, events that we started with, and things just kind of grew from there. So I've just really been excited that since that time, we initiated a partnership with the Dow Jones Fund to have a fellowship for early and mid-career editors, and they can do developmental opportunities based, on using this fellowship. So that was one of our main goals, is to support the development of editors. We have had great conversations, Twitter chats. We've had our website. We have a book corner where we elevate voices in that way. And that's just kind of really been our thing, to elevate voices, to really focus on giving a platform for the underrepresented. And we see it across the board. So it's not just race, it's the disability community, it's the LGBTQ plus community. It's, there may be all kinds of editors within ACES that feel like their voices aren't heard. We want to know who those folks are. So our next big thing is to really look at our demographics and get those voices out there, because we want the communities to speak for themselves. We really want to hear from them.
Right. Okay. And Sangeeta, I guess let's start with the same question. Tell me the background. It's also a fairly new committee, right?
Well, ours actually started in, the idea came up for me maybe in 2015. I had just joined the EFA, and I started going to different events, and I realized I was the only brown person at most of them, maybe all of them. And it just occurred to me that, well, if I feel this way, maybe other people do too. So I ran for the board the following year in 2016 on a diversity platform. I said I wanted to create a diversity initiative. I didn't know anything about being on a board. I went into it really blindly, but I won a seat, and I was really lucky that the person who was elected co-executive the same year I was elected as a member at large, Christina Fry, was really supportive of the idea of forming a diversity initiative. So she and I launched it together. We got the office's help to send out emails to the entire organization. We got a really wonderful response, and then we started having meetings, and we came up with a mission statement. We came up with goals, which we need to revisit. And we started tossing ideas around about what we wanted to accomplish. One of them was a mentor program that's now our welcome program. That's what we call it today. But so it's been a few years. It's been over 4 years now. And when did ACES form? It's
2018. In the fall of 2018. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so less than 3 years. Which then, my question, I warned you, I was going to ask this: why did it take so long for both these organizations to come up with? And another point of disclosure: I've been on the board since 2012, something like that. So I've been around for a few years. But why did it take us so long to have these focus committees?
Well, Mark, one of the things that I think about is, again, the formalization of it. I think people feel like we're talking about it and we're doing it, but there is a difference between having a dedicated effort toward it and having very specific goals and really challenging ourselves to go above and beyond what we're doing now. So I think part of it, I really felt it needed, and you were there at that conversation, Mark. I really felt that it needed to be formal, and I think that, so I would say probably, and Sangeeta, please, share too. I'm guessing you all were doing things, but they were one-offs here, one-offs there, or we had a conversation, or we implemented this thing over here. But the concerted effort is really kind of what took it to the next level.
Yeah. We started working right away when we formed this. I think when I ran for the board, I knew I wanted this. I didn't know how it would happen, when it would happen. It took about 6 months. I think, nobody else had thought about this idea, because um, I was one of the few people of color on the board. No, there was one other woman when I was there, but it's changed a lot. Thank goodness. Today there are more people, but from what I could observe, there weren't that many. So I don't think anybody on the board was really affected when they would go to events or when they noticed that theirs was the only ethnic name on a list, or I just happened to notice those things. So, but yeah, we got to work right away, and I was lucky that we had so many people willing to help. And I just saw some of the names, and they are still they are leaders in our diversity initiative to this day. But they were there from day one. Hi, Kelly. Hi, Lourdes. Hi.
We should let people quickly introduce themselves. If you're on the EFA Diversity Initiative, say hello, if you won't mind unmuting.
Yeah, and I don't think I'm going to be able to see the chat. I'm trying to.
We warn guests not to look at the chat. The chat, you start looking at the chat and you just get lost because it can be so active and so interesting and.
I just moved the whole Zoom screen down. So let's see. But yeah, if they want to pop up, or they can do it in the chat and I'll read it later. But
yeah.
But Mark, oh, there's someone. I think it's Lourdes.
Yes.
Lord.
Crystal's here.
Hi, Crystal.
Kelly. And then I see some ACES members. Of our board, Miro, and those here who's been very, very supportive of our initiative.
They're all
people
I believe, right?
People are fairly shy about unmuting and speaking up. I probably put people on the spot, but it's good to have the representation from the two committees also here. And if you have anything to add, please feel free just to put a note in the chat and we'll call on you. Yeah.
Mark, can I mention one other thing? I think that we just all, which is I think very important for this whole conversation, is that we all have natural blind spots. And if we don't walk a certain path every day, you can miss things. And so, I remember what was one of the aha moments for me is I remember sitting in an ACES conference session, and it was about disability and using social, how to use the best tools so that we could reach audiences via social media. And I was thinking, wow, these are things I can take back to my office and tell our social media team right away to make it more accessible. But before I was in that session, I wasn't even thinking about those tools. I wasn't thinking about the experience in that way. So I think part of it is, again, if you don't have, that's why it's so important to have people of very diverse backgrounds and experience at the table, because otherwise you miss a whole lot of the experience that other people are having that's not like yours. And so when you say, why does it take so long? Sometimes it's because you need to hear from people whose experience is unlike yours. And I think neither of these two organizations are unique in this, but there's a lot of organizations where those voices are not at the table. So so you need to be, that's why, again, I love that we are really focused on being advocates for for the voices that have not been heard or don't get heard all the time. And that's why representation is really important.
Right. I'm glad you mentioned I think that's one area that we think of diversity as ethnic and racial diversity, but it's also LGBTQ. It's also, and people who are have an immigrant experience, maybe people who don't speak English as a first language, and you mentioned the people with disabilities. That community, those communities are sort of, it's easy to forget, but those are people who are editors and writers and in the editorial world. And there are all these barriers to those people fully participating, and it's great. I think it's a lot of it is simply opening our eyes as members of the committee, and then also helping others to open their eyes just to see what the needs are out there.
And even when you're part of an underrepresented community, you can't speak for necessarily for other underrepresented communities, and I think that's why it's important to hear from people themselves. I remember when we were thinking about creating sessions, one of the reasons why we went slower in the beginning is that we didn't want to assume and put together a session for a community based on what we thought they wanted to do and what they would want to talk about. We felt like we needed to take time to cultivate relationships, authentic relationships with people within within ACEs of a particular community, so that they could speak for themselves and it was more important to give them a platform to speak for themselves.
Mm-hmm. Sangeeta, I want to ask you about the welcoming committee initiative. I'm not sure what the formal word for it is, but I think it's just it's just a simple idea, but it seems that it's got to be pretty effective. What's been the experience there?
It's a simple idea. It wasn't easy to bring it to fruition. We started talking about it in 2017, so shortly after our diversity initiative formed. And at that time, we thought, should it be a mentor program? But then that implies a hierarchy. Then we thought maybe it should be a buddy system. We finally decided to call it a welcome program because we didn't want volunteers to have too many responsibilities that a traditional mentor would have. And we went through so many different iterations before we launched it to the entire EFA. It started with about 8 of us who paired up with each other and just tried to see how it would go. We in the fall of 2018, Kelly, who's here, and 2 other people, Brittany and Alyssa, we started meeting every week and putting together some documents about how we wanted this to run. Do we need requirements for the welcomers? And we decided on like 3 to 5 years in the field and 1 year as in the EFA. We decided to create intake surveys and exit surveys. One of my favorite parts of this, my favorite documents we formed is a fail forward to move forward document, because we're all kind of just stumbling forward. We don't know what we're doing, and we wanted to put that out there. Like, let's just try this. And so then we had a pilot program, then we did a welcome program beta, and I think this is our 3rd iteration. A wonderful woman named Linda Ruggieri, who's also become a friend, is running it now. And she does an orientation for all the newcomers. She does the pairing. She pairs the newcomers with the welcomers. So we have them fill out a 10-question survey about their interests and what kind of editorial skills they work on. And then they meet for 1 hour a month for 3 months. And with every iteration of the program, we try to improve it. Like, we'll get little suggestions like, let's meet more during those 3 months. So we're doing socials now. We've gotten just today, or maybe it was yesterday, we got a question about, well, why are you making this pairing based on identity? But that's one of the questions in our survey. Like, would you like to be paired with somebody from your identity? We can't guarantee a match, but we can try. So
right. So are these one-on-one meetings, or are they doing group things?
The welcomers.
So it sounds like a little bit like a mentor program, but you're not calling it that because, like you say, there's responsibility then that goes with it.
Yeah, they don't have to, proofread the person's resume, and we call it a guide. I think is it our tagline, or it should be, but we call it a guided tour of the EFA. We have lots of resources. I haven't actually been a welcomer because I should do this. At one point, I should participate in my own program, but as far as I know, most of them meet on Zoom or on the phone for 1 hour once a month, and we have agendas for them to follow, which Linda puts together.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to stick with Sangeeta because the other big initiative, and I know that at ACES we've talked about doing an internal survey, and we're sort of got that in the works, that we're planning to sort of, we don't ask people their gender, we don't ask people their race or their sexual orientation or preference. So it's a bit difficult sometimes to know who our membership is and what their needs are. But you guys just did an EFA. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was just saying, Mark, I agree with you that for us has been one of the key initiatives that we wanted to really dig into. And I know that EFA, we had that conversation. So we met for the rest of everyone participating. So EFA, the EFA Diversity Committee, as well as the ACES committee got together. It was a great conversation. And we noticed that we were interested in many of the same things, but I think for programming purposes, for focus, for understanding what our members need, understanding our demographics and letting people self-identify as they wish, and also getting their feedback. I know, Sangeeta, you guys did a diversity survey recently. Did you get a lot of great insight?
We did. So that was Lourdes, who is here today. She started the work for this, I would say it's maybe the end of 2018. And it took a good 2 years. Part of that, I know she talked to an editing organization in the UK. Name is escaping me right now, and I think they also changed their name recently.
Formerly the Society for Editors and Proofreaders, now the Chartered CE.
That's it.
Chartered Institute
CIEP.
for Editing and Proofreading. CIEP.
I knew Aaron would come through with that.
I might be an advanced professional member.
Oh, okay.
She had talked to them, and because they had done this kind of survey, and then so she based some of the questions on their survey, but then opened it up to our group for feedback, and we went through many rounds of changes. How, if we're going to ask somebody's ethnicity, what ethnicity should we list? Who are we leaving out? I mean, we had to think about all sorts of things. And we also hired a consultant. So one of the advantages for the EFA was that we had done a rates survey, which I was very involved in. I took over from somebody else because I really wanted the survey done. So, and we our office manager found a consultant, and that consultant helped us put together a rate survey. So we used the same consultant to help us with our diversity survey, which we sent out in October to the entire membership in October of last year. And I wish I could put Lourdes on. I don't know if she'd want to be put on the spot like that, but this is her baby, and I'm so proud of what she did, what we all did to get this done. So it went out to the entire membership. We got a 22% response rate, which is apparently a really good response rate. Most of these surveys, you get like 10% of members participating. And then we also had the consultant put together a report based on those results. And shall I share some of them, or?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that you have some of the data to share.
That'd be great.
Very interesting.
I should pull it up. It's on, for EFA members, if you go to, let me see if I can make this easy. If you go to the Diversity Initiative page, which I think is under About, and then there's you can't see it that well, but there is a little button that says click here for the EDI survey. And it's not open to non-members, but there's another story behind that. But let me see if I can pull this up right now, but I know off the top of my head, and I should warn everybody, these numbers are a little bit disconcerting, but not unexpected. The EFA is 86% white, and yeah, that number is we based part of our survey on the Lee and Low survey, if you all are familiar with that, where they surveyed publishers and agents, and that survey revealed that the publishing industry was maybe, I want to say 75% white, which was still like, wow, but for the EFA, I didn't think it would be that high. And then it's, I think, 5% African American, 4% Asian, is it, yeah, 4% Asian, no, maybe 4% Latinx, and then Asian comes after that. And so that's one of the findings. We also asked people to tell us where they thought the EFA needed to improve its diversity efforts. And 5 areas were identified as the top areas. And these were our discussion list. Though we have a discussion list committee, and they're doing a lot to improve that. Then it was, after that it was, I think it was leadership, membership, chapters, EFA conferences. So Lourdes presented these findings to the board, I think before she joined the board. She is now on the board of the EFA, and the board did agree to take actionable steps to address some of the findings of the survey. And I think I can talk about that a little bit too, but we need to do more. We definitely need to do more.
And Sangeeta, this is like fantastic feedback. Like you said, sometimes even though it's hard to see it in black and white, it's a place to start and a place to build, and I think that the larger membership needs to see these things, because I think that people have a different idea about these types of issues. And so when you see the actual feedback from other members, it's kind of, again, can be an aha moment. But I think you guys asked some really great questions. And there's what I appreciate about the way you went about it is that it's very nuanced. Like there's very, the kind of questions you ask get at some key experiential, data that I think people need to hear.
Yeah. I mean, we needed it. I think you're right. It was very hard to see this, but we needed to hear it. We also asked for people to make open-ended comments. We had a section in the EFA in the survey for that, and I think we got hundreds. I don't know, was it 200 or 500? Somewhere in that range.
Either way, it's impressive.
Yes, yeah.
No, it is.
And it was really helpful for us to hear from the membership. These are people whose voices aren't heard usually. And I mean, how would they be if they're not on the board or if they're not like a chapter?
It's also, I find as we, at ACES, as we talk about just what initiatives are priorities and how we move forward, it's very important to hear from members because, I mean, we have more than 5,000 members who don't all think alike. So, sharing this, like you all are doing in terms of sharing this feedback, this is what, one of our goals, because we think it's important for the members to see what other members think and what other members experience and where they prioritize things, so that they understand that a lot of what we're doing, because a lot of what we're doing is feedback we get as a board from individual members, from group of members, from conversations. And so it's not simply like the board sitting in a room deciding like what we think is important. It is reflective of what members think, but our members are not homogenous. We have members all across the spectrum. So when you do, this work that you guys have done is great because again, it lets the larger membership know what their peers are thinking, what their peers are experiencing, what their peers want to, where their peers want to see the organization go.
Yeah, yeah. I think we also have to think, I mean, what we're doing is asking heads of committees who are on the board to take steps to address the fact that, okay, we have very few, education, that was one of the places where they didn't see a lot of diversity.
Oh, yeah.
Most of our instructors, we don't have that many people of color or people with disabilities. So the head of our education committee did say that she wanted to try to recruit more, a wider range of instructors. I think, it's also hard because she's used to having a certain set, and then every time somebody new comes on, they have to onboard them, they have to sign a contract. There's all sorts of steps, and she's a volunteer. And we're working on those. I mean, in terms of the leadership, we're hoping more people are running this year. I think, in the past, people have been intimidated about running for the board. I mean, I just didn't know what I was doing. It wasn't, but that's how I got on there. But I think it can be hard for people who, to step up and say, okay, I want to do this.
One of the things that we too, in that same vein, like you said, I think leadership people participating in leadership makes a huge difference. We also had a real clear distinction when we were looking at priorities and talking about wanting to elevate voices and profiles and expertise, that we didn't want to just have underrepresented people talk about issues of underrepresentation, or issues of representation. We wanted to elevate them based on their expertise as editors. We're asking you to speak on this panel to share your editorial expertise, not just to speak about your experience of being a person of color or a person from this particular community or that particular community. Those conversations are important. We still believe that those are extremely important to have those available and to have, great people to speak to those. But again, we thought, one of the layers of this is to, again, elevate these folks for their editing expertise.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And I think that gets to the one of the causes, I think, of underrepresentation is simply people not seeing themselves in those particular roles. Yeah. And I'm not talking about just in the organizations, but in the editing and writing and editorial world as a whole. You have to see people who look like you, who you feel like you fit in. And that's why I think the welcome committee idea is a great concept, because it takes people who may join and not feel a part of it. It gives them a chance to sort of feel a part of the organization. But I think it's a problem it's decades old. I mean, I was talking about it when I first started at newspapers. It's always been an issue, the lack of diversity in newsrooms, the lack of people reporting on a community who looked like that community. And I actually think, and this is maybe a little naive, but I've said this before, I think that it's a very difficult problem, but it's also, there's a very easy solution. And it's not going to solve the problem, but the easiest solution is simply to elevate people who don't look like me to be there to represent the organization and represent the field.
I think there's also a challenge with that. What does elevate mean in this instance? Maisha, you used the word that I think a lot of people are using these days, or the phrase, have a seat at the table. Does that mean being on the board, or does that mean something else? Because being on the board is also work. And we're shutting out so many people who just don't have time for this volunteer work. And
I think it's, to me, what we've tried to do is, so I think yes, it's being on the board, but also it's maybe participating on a particular committee, like you said, that fits your time and your interest. That, one thing that we've said, and you guys may or may not know, that we are currently seeking out a new executive director, we had a fantastic person who helped to get us started with integrating staff with ACEs. And I have to say, so we're excited about what the future holds, and we're looking forward to their ideas. One of the things that we discussed both as a board and with staff's feedback is that we wanted members involved in all of these various activities that we're doing, and not simply them to be board run and board managed and board led. And so I think, and Meryl is here with us today. I'm going to put her on the spot. She, has also great institutional knowledge about ACEs, and maybe Meryl, you have some thoughts on that too, on how we progress in that way. But I think we are always having conversations about engaging members in this work we're doing, and not centralizing all the decisions and all of the conversation with the board.
Yeah, we're trying that with the diversity initiative, in that it's an easier way to get involved with the EFA without taking on that responsibility of being a board member. So anybody who's all they have to do is, I feel like I lost. Can you all still hear me and see me?
Yeah, you're fine.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
If you honor our mission statement, agree to our non-discrimination statement, and you're an EFA member, come to our meetings. It's usually about 20 people. It's not huge, but it's big enough to have a really good conversation. And I feel like, that any opinion is welcome. Please, say what you want. We want to make it a safe space, and then we try to get people. We have, there is a hierarchy only because we want to get things done, but we have 5, what I would call leaders of the diversity initiative, who have more responsibility than members. And, every time we get a complaint, they chime in and help me deal with it, because they usually come to me. But members can, suggest speakers for us to hire. They can, we came up with this word list of contested terms to use to be considered while editing. Actually, I think I got that name wrong, but we have this list of words, and our the person who ran that, Amaryllis Acosta, she would recruit volunteers at meetings and say, "Hey, can you take this letter?" And so that was a great way to get people involved without giving them, so much work that they would get overwhelmed.
I think that's something I'm seeing a demand for, and a real embracing of the conscious language side of things, where those lists of words that we might think aren't problematic but have different meanings or difficulties for certain communities. Those resources are terrific, and there's such a demand for that, like on, in whether it's in presentations or on the websites of the organizations.
But they keep changing, and we have to keep updating these lists. That's the only thing. But I've learned so much from them, that all these words and phrases I've been using that I did not know I should.
Yeah.
I think did I just say, "Hey guys"? I might have, because I'm really trying to.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny, and I said elevate, and Maisha said elevate, and I think there's a pushback that elevating implies sort of the hierarchy of the white male, bringing up somebody to, instead of sort of maybe giving the space to let somebody create their own path. So
one of the things I find, Mark, I think you're right, both of you. What I love about our committee, so I want to thank, Henry Furman and Christine Ma, Constance Brasa, Laura Browning, Mr. Mark Allen, who is fantastic, on our committee, is that we come from such different backgrounds that even within our committee is a value that we can share that with each other, and we can bring up different issues, and we have a safe space to have those conversations. And then the board as well, as we bring it, larger. And so again, not so much elevate as, like you said, provide an opportunity, a space, encouragement, even. One thing that, going to your question, Sangeeta, one thing that we're seeing, which I think has been positive, is there, like at Crystal, I'm going to call Crystal out, Crystal Shelley, who we're lucky to have, and EFA is lucky to have in both organizations, who just joined the board. We have a number of members who will participate on a committee and then decide that they, will run for the board. So they, so they've been they've got a chance to see a particular perspective, and also, bring that with their experience to the board. What I do also appreciate about ACES and our board too is like there is such a cross-pollination in terms of supporting the work. So Meryl is very, very busy on, with our training and development arm of ACES, and we often tap her for thoughts on how do we then integrate that with our, diversity and inclusion goals. And so, Meryl has been working with us to talk about how to provide training to HBCU students. And, so it's just, again, I feel like in the last several years, we've seen this integration where it's not diversity inclusion is this separate thing on the side,
Right.
It's a part of the conversation. I think that's like really important. And we don't always agree. I mean, I think we have to, sometimes this work, Sangeeta, you kind of implied it, that it's messy. It's not easy. It's very difficult conversations. And it presents a lot of challenges, but also some opportunity for great rewards. So that's why we do it. So that's why we really continue to work through them. But when you have great people that you're working with, makes all the difference in the in the world to be able to have those conversations.
Definitely. I mean, I think about every time I talk to the members of the diversity initiative, it's just such a pleasure. I mean, I know that it's sometimes like, wait, I don't have time. I should do paid work. I should get back to my clients. But it's I know they care too. And it's harder to go to the board and bring our ideas. And it's become much easier from when I first started doing this 4 years ago or whatever. And I had Christina with me, the co-executive of the organization, but it was still hard. I mean, an example is, we now require board members to take EDI training. And that started really from the diversity initiative. One of our members wrote an open letter to the board. Was it an open letter? Yeah, we got signatures for it. And some people were not thrilled, but it did pass. One of our board members, who is not part of the diversity initiative, got that through. Researched trainers, a lot of work into it, and so I'm really hoping that now that the board, the outlook of the board and the makeup of the board is changing, we're starting to integrate diversity and inclusion into everything we do. Ongoing project.
So,
Mark, stop me. I just saw something. Stop me if I'm derailing us. But Patty, I know Patty Boyd in the chat was talking about a particular type of training.
You're not supposed to look
am I
at the
cheating?
chat.
Am I cheating?
Yeah, you're.
Sorry.
It's too. No, let's go to Patty.
Sorry.
Was it Patty?
Yeah, Patty was
Heather, we have a question, right?
Or a suggestion, I think a recommendation Patty was making about particular training. Was it genders?
Wait. Hang on, hold that thought, Maisha. Heather, we have a process, so let's make sure we get the person asking the question in the room rather than the chat, because everybody wants to hear the question.
So we did have a specific question from Dana, if you wanted to unmute and ask.
Whoa. Hi. So my specific question, and I'm just going to scroll up here in the chat so I can read it. I said, what kinds of trainings have EFA and ACEs been conducting for all members to address internalized bias and implicit bias? Is there a way to make those trainings mandatory for membership?
Great question. Hi, Dana. Should I take this or?
Sure, absolutely.
Hi, Dana. First of all, I think she started in the welcome program. I think you're
Yes.
a fairly new member.
Correct.
And then Linda got you into the diversity initiative. She came to our meeting. Was it? I can't even remember now. Was it just last week? It might have been.
Yeah, I think it was last week.
So much has happened. I lose track of the days. But hello. I'm very glad you asked that question. So, I don't think we can make it mandatory for members because we don't really have requirements for members aside from that they have to fill out an application and pay. I mean, the office doesn't go through and check if their business is legitimate. It's really a pretty simple application. I haven't filled it out in a long time, but I think it was just a few questions and this is what it costs. And but we did make it mandatory for board members. Now, and again, that wasn't easy. Some board members didn't feel like they should have to take this kind of training. Some board members were concerned about the time commitment. I have to admit that as much as I wanted to do the training, I was worried about doing, I think it was 7 sessions altogether. But then the person who took charge of this project decided that it would be best to just require 2 sessions of training. These were training modules, we called them, and then the rest could be volunteer if you wanted to take them. So I did end up completing them, but it was really one of the very first requirements of our board, and I think that was hard for a lot of people because they've never done anything like this. I'm starting to look at the chat. Should I? And now
No. Oh my goodness.
Well,
We need to figure out a way to block that.
I see 73.
Well, from an ACES perspective, we do have trainings on those particular topics and issues. They're not currently, they're not mandatory, but I think there's an opportunity there to, as we welcome people, to include that as something that we would drive folks to. There's, an opportunity there for that.
For board members?
For new members, but also our staff does a really great job at promoting our different training opportunities and discussions around these particular issues. Because it's been really great. We have both, these topics come up in our Twitter chat. We have actual formal trainings through our academy, our ACES Academy, around these topics, both self-paced and in-person trainings. Our conference, we often have conference sessions that address these. So, I know at least within ACES, there's a lot of different opportunities. Again, they're not mandatory, but they're heavily promoted. But again, as a welcome, is for new members, there's an opportunity there. I could definitely share that with our staff.
It seems that, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just thinking, Dana also asked, can we make it available for members? I would love for that to happen, at least to diversity initiative members. It's a question of time and research. The person we hired for the board and also staff, it was also required for staff, it took a long time to get him. I don't know if we can hire him again. He's so busy.
It's a specialized thing, isn't it? It's and I think we had a discussion about having somebody speak to the board, and it's not like you just go to the yellow pages. Dating myself here, but.
Well, one of the things that we're doing, Mark, too, from our conversations, is trying to build better relationships with other diversity and inclusion committees and within various organizations, whether it be EFA, it may be it may be the National Association of Black Journalists, or Asian American journalists, and Henry Furman is here. So Henry is a part of our Diversity and Inclusion Committee at ACES. He also leads our education fund, but he also is the president, but correct me, on the board, Henry,
AAJA.
of AAJA. Henry, I'm putting you on the spot. Oh, she's in the middle of a work thing. Okay, gotcha. So he's listening with the ear too.
Henry's a good multitasker.
And so Ellen just mentioned being a member of AAJA. And so we really firmly believe, and that's something that we really want to cultivate, is more connection between the various organizations so we could share resources and share findings. And I think that would only make us stronger, if we were able to pull that network together.
Yeah, I should have come to the happy hour last year. I missed out. I missed out meeting you. I think it was just such a busy time, but we should do it again and share ideas and resources. I would love that.
Yeah, it's been too long. It's been a long time. We did say we'd get back together and do some more. And I think we were a nascent organization, and we didn't necessarily have a lot to talk about, but I think now we've got a lot more to talk about, so we should definitely do that.
And I did use an acronym, Mark. I want to just say Asian American Journalists Association is AAJA.
And Henry is famous, I think. I don't
pretty much.
Henry is famous for various reasons. Yeah.
No, I feel like
Henry
something to do with LA Times, because I'm from the LA area.
Oh, okay. Henry was managing editor at the LA Times, and has been a long time involved in AAJA. And I believe you're correct that he's head of AAJA, but I could be mistaken on that. He's head of our education fund for ACES. He came up with the concept of doing a diversity happy hour. There's a famous, he likes to famously tell a story about how he and I were walking around the pool at the some conference and decided this was the thing to do, and that led to the breakfast, and now we have the committee that has taken over that. So we can't say enough kind things about Henry. We are running out of time a little bit, and I think I fear that there are some things I wanted to cover, and I'm hoping we can do so. We've talked about the organizations, and that's important, but the organizations reflect the wider community. And Sangeeta, you're familiar with the publishing industry, and what's our status there, and what have you experienced as a person of color in that community, and what can, and this is maybe a big ask, but what can EFA do to sort of encourage more diversity in the broader field?
Yeah, let's see, there's in trade publishing, you mean? Or, well, I think we're trying to pull from trade publishers. Like, if you quit your job or lose your job, come join us and become a freelancer, and we'll help you find the tools to help you build your business. But I come from trade publishing, and I was in house in a couple of those corporations, and I would say that there's a little bit more diversity there. When I first started, I happened to land at a place called Little Brown, the children's book part of that imprint, and the editor-in-chief was really determined to build a diverse staff, so that was good. But when I changed jobs and I went out into the bigger, I went to other corporations, I learned it was nothing like that. So I just happened to get lucky that there were quite a few people of color, at least, that I worked with when I first started. But what was the other part of your question? There was more.
Well, what can EFA do to promote diversity in the broader field?
Yeah, I would like to promote our freelancers, and we are having a big discussion about this, that we recently received an email from Harper, one of the big publishers, who said, we want to broaden our freelancer database. Can you help? We want to include more groups who are underrepresented, BIPOC, LGBTQIA, people with disabilities. What can you do? And so I started this conversation at our diversity initiative meeting last week. Well, should we start self-identifying in our member directory? But this is really tricky because I can say in my member profile, I'm an Indian American woman, but who's going to look for that? I mean, so I feel like we need check boxes, but if we have check boxes, well, what do you include? And you're going to leave somebody out. And we have not come to any conclusions. We just started this at our meeting last week, and then we continued our discussion on our Slack platform. But I'd like there to be a checkbox that says you're in the diversity initiative. You should be spotlighted on our member directory, and so people can find you. But I don't think the board will go for that. But
right, it's awkward. I think Maisha, we've dealt with the same, or Heather, when we did the jobs board or the editors for hire directory. We talked about some of those issues.
We're making incremental steps where on our registration form and our renewal forms, and we're still in conversation on where's the best place to put those questions. And I'll tell you, you said it before, Sangeeta, where you just gotta get out there. You gotta take the step, and then you'll get the feedback, and then you'll refine it. And that's kind of what happened. We had a couple of people who gave us feedback like, I need a blank line, so that I can self-identify opposed to being, kind of narrow into these particular categories. So we're still working on that, and the best way to create member profiles that allow for that. But yeah, definitely something on our list too.
Or create a separate directory, but I don't know. There's just so many different ways to go about this that let's join forces and talk about it.
Definitely. We have the different databases out there too that editors of color and yeah, we have variety, and I do think that we I know we have been trying to network and find voices from the disability community because we know that that's a very important community within ACES, and we want to have them again share with us, kind of feedback on how we can support them as well. So, across the board, just wanting to, connect with people and hear from them.
Yeah. Yeah.
I said to both Sangeeta and Maisha that we really want to take the hour to get to know you, a little bit about you. I haven't even mentioned the fact that you just crazily started a PhD program, Maisha, and just started a very new and interesting job. And we'd love to get to know you even more, spend another hour talking, but we're running out of time. I'm going to ask one question, I think, for both of you, and that is how do you feel about how we doing? Are we getting there? Are we making progress? Is it a uphill climb? Are we what's your mood about the state of where we are and where we're going?
Should I go first?
You should.
It's all of those things. We are making progress. We it's slow, but we're getting things done. We have our welcome program now. We now finished our we have the results of our diversity survey, which we sometimes call EDI survey, that was one of the things I was going to ask you. Do we say EDI or do we say DI? I don't know. We've got events. We did a trans allyship workshop in the fall, and we're going to do another one later this summer. We're getting things done, but no, I still think we have a long way to go. We want to make sure everybody in the EFA feels welcome and heard, and it's going to be a great thing as the diversity initiative grows, but then I think it might be harder for people to express themselves, but we'll deal with that later. There's so many things I want to happen. I want there to be a lot of I want more board representation. I want a lot of different kinds of editors presenting at our next EFA conference. I mean, the list is endless, but one step at a time, and we're gonna keep going, keep trying. So.
Right. And is there if people have suggestions, I wanted to put this out. Do they send a note to you? Do you have an email address for the?
They can send it to diversity@theefa.org, and I check that account, and then I share it with the other. I mean, if it's applicable to them, I share it with the other diversity initiative leaders, and sometimes we'll discuss. We get ideas, we get complaints, we get all, but sure, we don't always answer immediately, but we will answer, and we'll try to. We had a question about how jobs are vetted. That led to a huge discussion because sometimes some really questionable jobs show up on our job list, and people wonder, well, does the EFA really want to be associated with this? So, and then we bring it up for discussion at our meeting. So diversity@theefa.org.
And what is ACE's email address, Maisha? Something like that.
Yes.
Diversity.
ACES is, because there's an S on the end, so let me just make sure that I want to make sure I get it right. Sorry, guys. I always have to double check.
Why?
So.
Sorry to put you on the spot. We can actually find that address.
ACES Diversity.
I got it.
Got
ACES
it?
Diversity. Okay.
You have it?
It's
ACES Diversity at aceseditors.org.
Okay. Excellent.
Should I answer your question, Mark?
Yes, you should. Please tell me how you feel, Maisha.
No, I was just going to say that I actually am really happy about the progress we've made. It feels like a long time. Sometimes it feels like sometimes it feels like a blip on the radar that I've been on the board. But since I joined ACES in 2016, I really just feel like we made a lot of progress, but I feel like it's the foundation for where we need to go. So now we need to have wider conversations, deeper conversations, take some action on things that have been percolating. And I think once we have our new executive director, we'll be doing that. Like, our staff has been phenomenal. Like, they are such go-getters. And that has made, I need to say that, like, that has made a huge difference. When you have a volunteer board, having additional help to get these things moving and sustained. Sometimes the lag is not for a lack of wanting, to do things. It's just a logistical thing. So they run with things. Like, I go to the website, like, wow, we're doing what? It's just really, they have been really supportive. So it's not just centralized to the diversity and inclusion committee. We've had that discussion about, diversity inclusion versus diversity, equity, and inclusion. So that conversation is having of whether or not we want to move towards that. So I just feel like there's a lot of things bubbling, and I'm looking forward to us really taking some more concrete steps. But I'm very proud of what we've done. I just know we have so much more to do, and our members are really getting involved with us. So that's what I'm excited about. That is, that we're hearing from a lot of people who want to be a part of the conversation and part of the action. So yeah, I think we have a lot of good things on the horizon.
Okay.
And it's important and necessary.
Thank you both for what you're doing and for spending this hour with us, this hour plus. I'm sorry we went a little bit over today and I didn't get to all my questions. But we'll have to have you guys back maybe to give us an update in a year or something like that. And then at that point I can ask you more, put you on the spot with some more personal questions if I could. But thank you very much for being here. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another show. And we will hope to see you all then. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mark and Aaron and Heather, so much. Sangeeta, you're on mute.
I was gonna say, I wanna stay. This was fun. Are we still being? We're still being recorded. Okay, we can.
Oh yeah, we are, but we're gonna cut us off right now. So
We need to connect.
Thanks.
We need to-
We do.
we'll let you guys talk on your own, but we're gonna close the meeting. So thanks very much, everybody.
Okay.
Bye bye.
Bye, guys.